Everybody's so quiet. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Public Works and Finance Committee meeting of the Moscow City Council. Sitting here with me is my co-councilors, Haley Lewis and Maureen Laughlin, and then also our city supervisor, Bill Belknap. It is March 28th, 2022. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the Public Works Finance meeting minutes from March 14th.
Looks good.
Looks good?
Yep.
Okay, they're approved, sir. Second item is the consideration of janitorial services bid results. David Schott, hello, sir.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. So this is the consideration of the janitorial bid results.
Okay.
Introduction, the city published an invitation to bid on February 19th and February 26th of this year. That was a legal posting, and then we also emailed it to 7 custodial companies. We also have the bid available on our website. Bid opening took place at 10 a.m. on March 9th, at which time we received 2 bids, one from the Garson Group, which was a new bidder, and then Evcar, doing business as Service Master Building Maintenance, which is one of our existing contractors.
Mm-hmm.
And just a little bit of background. So we grouped all the city buildings into 6 modules for the purposes of bidding. Bidders could bid one module, multiple modules, or bid all the modules. And then we would enter into a professional services agreement with the successful bidder for each module. So this agreement is a 3-year agreement. It'll go October 1, 2022 at the beginning of the next fiscal year through September 30th of 2025.
Wow.
So this is a breakdown of the different modules. So the new police station was its own module. City Hall, Paul Mann went together. Hamilton and Egan went together. Fire Station 1, 3, and city shops. The WRF, the Magyar, and the Water Operations Building were a module. And then ITC and the Haddock Building were our final module there.
I have a question. Was the police station on its own in previous contracts for modules, or is it just given the nature of it being a shiny new building? Do you remember?
I don't recall off the top of my head. That's a great
idle
question.
Curiosity. I don't know.
I'd have to look that up.
Out of curiosity.
So this was the bid tally. So the police station, this was in your packet as well. All the different modules, and it's a little small. It's quite a bid package here. And then module 5 and 6. So the Garson Group was a low bidder for module 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. This is an amount of $315,600 for the 3-year agreement, proposed agreement. Evcar, Service Master, was module 4, the low bidder, and so that's $30,847.56 for the 3-year agreement. Module 4 was the 2 fire stations and city shops. So with that, I recommend acceptance of the low bid from the Garson Group and the low bid from Service Master for janitorial services for the next 3 years for our buildings beginning October 1 of this year. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, take comments.
Tell us about the Garson Group. They're new.
They are.
Yeah. Are they from around here? Tell us a little bit.
They're headquartered out of Boise. So I've been working with their manager there, checked out all the references. I heard all the things I needed to hear. So there was nothing in their bid package that would lead me to say to disqualify this bidder.
Sure.
So
Okay.
So the 30,000 actually is for 3 years. They get $10,000 a year, more or less.
more or less, yes.
Just for the council's information, so a few of the modules are now being serviced on a 3-day service. So previously, I think pretty much all the facilities were serviced 5 days a week. So for a few of the office buildings, staff felt that we could get by with 3-day week service. So several of the modules have that. This contract actually, between both of them, would be roughly $60,000 a year less than we currently are paying because of that shift in change. I mean, some of it's in just pricing from a different vendor. I think some of it is a cost reduction due to the reduction of service to the buildings. So this would be, a fairly significant reduction compared to, I think we were at about 170,000 per year right now currently for all these facilities. The 345 divided by 3 gets us to 115,000 per year underneath these proposed contracts. It actually is a bit of a reduction in savings of 60,000 per year over the life of the contract.
Good job.
That's good.
Oh, thank you.
I had a question. I noticed that EVCAR didn't bid on module 1 and module 3. Do we know why? Like, have they, and was Service Master our person for, was that who we contracted with for all these locations previously?
Great question, Councilor Lewis. I don't know why, I didn't ask them why they did not bid them, but they're currently servicing the Egan and the
Gotcha.
Herc. Yep.
Okay. Oh, interesting. And they didn't bid on it. Okay.
Yep.
And then I have one other question. Maybe this is more of a Bill question. Being somebody who works at a manufacturing company, we talk a lot about vertical integration. And so I understand, I guess, as we go through these exercises of seeing these contracts and services that we contract out, it's been cool to see and get my arms around because we are supporting local businesses. I do wonder, was this sort of janitorial work previously in-house? How long have we been contracting for? And I mean, is there, then you have to face things like paying for benefits and like that price tag. I'm sure there's a bigger price balloon, but as far as flexibility of having people on staff to go where you need them.
And we actually just did that exercise this year to analyze the potential cost of bringing both some janitorial services in-house as well as the entire city building fleet. Ultimately, it was about a $350,000 annual cost estimate for us to be able to service that with. So you're comparing $115,000 per year to contract the service, or in excess of $300,000 per year if we were to have staff with all the equipment, benefits, and other expenses associated with it. We really just cannot compete for these services.
Did we ever?
Not in the 20 years I've been here.
Okay.
I think at various points in time, there have been facilities that have had in-house janitorial staff, but we have contracted for at least 20 years. I don't know before that point in time.
And it's only kind of fresh in my mind because watching U of I go through their exercise a few years ago about what made sense to take out of house and what keep in house. So it's good to know you went through the exercise. Thank you.
I like supporting local business too. That makes me happy. So, all right, if we're good with that, we'll recommend acceptance. And I think probably consent agenda.
Sure.
Please. Good. All right, David, thank you.
You bet.
Our next item is the Moscow Ren Fair Beer and Wine Garden request. David, you don't get to go far.
Thank you for having me again. Again, this is the Renaissance Fair Beer and Wine Garden request. And so they're requesting that City Council approve a resolution allowing them to have a beer and wine garden provided by a licensed vendor at East City Park for Ren Fair this year. It'll be held April 30th and May 1st, which is a Saturday and Sunday. It'll be from 11 a.m. to 7:30 on Saturday, and then 11 to 5 p.m. on May 1st, Sunday. The event's open to the public. I did find an error with my council packet. This is not their first time having a beer and wine garden here. And so I scratched that out and I'll update the packet when it heads to council. So I believe their last one was in 2019, if I recall. So I apologize for the oversight on that on my part. So the police department's reviewed the request and require 2 security personnel at site during the permitted event as described in the resolution. So this is the location. It's a little bit fuzzy here, but there's the stage, and then it'll just be on the north side of the asphalt pad there. So we recommend approving the resolution authorizing the beer and wine garden for Moscow Renaissance Fair 2022, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or take
So how do
comments.
you pick your vendor?
The city doesn't have any role in that. That's up to
Right,
the
it's
group.
Ren Fair
So-
group.
Oh, great. Okay.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
No,
You want to wait?
no, it.
She lost
it.
Oh, you lost it?
Oh, okay, it came back. I noticed this is like, because I noticed we also have another request following this one. Do we know it's $100 application fee, right, for the beer and wine garden request?
application fee, correct?
application fee? Okay. No, and you know what? That just means I'm going to go look at the budget. I was just thinking, I think that's a really attainable amount for community groups to be able to be seeking this. And I was like, oh, I wonder how many we see in a year. And so I don't know if you know off the top of your mind how many requests we see for these sorts of things.
This year, and this is just for parks, I've got 3 in the hopper.
Right
So,
on.
but there's community events that also does them as well, and I'm not sure, I can't speak to that number.
Gotcha.
And that fee is to cover the legal
Staff.
expense to prepare the resolution,
Sure.
all the staff processing that goes into that as well.
Love to hear it.
Any more questions, or can we recommend approval?
Yeah, we can,
Okay. It's a resolution, so it has to go on
Oh,
regular.
Can be consent.
Let's do consent.
consent now.
Okay. David, you might as well just stay up here today.
Hey, it
Our-
doesn't change his PowerPoint.
Our next item is the Earth Day celebration beer and wine garden request. David Schott.
All right, this is my last one for the day, I promise. So this is the Earth Day celebration. Beer and wine requested again at East City Park this year. So very similar to the last presentation. They're seeking a resolution allowing them to have a beer and wine garden provided by a licensed vendor. They're looking to do this on April 22nd from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. This one is open to the public, and this is their first beer and wine garden request, from Inland Northwest. Again, the police department has reviewed this and are requiring 2 security personnel for the event. So they're to the southwest of the stage. It'll be a 25 by 25 enclosure with the fencing. Just, again, near the asphalt pad in the center of the park there. So we're recommending approval of the resolution authorizing the beer and wine garden for Earth Day.
I have no questions.
I do have a
I
question.
knew you would. I knew you would.
I had misread it, so I'm glad I reread because I had questions if one was going to require police presence, but I realized they're both for security personnel. What is the threshold for MPD to want to have someone on site? Or is it, is the intention more so that the expectation is that the event hoster takes on the burden of organizing security, and as long as MPD is comfortable with that plan, there's no need for police officers to be there? Are there situations where we have to have MPD there?
In the resolution itself, it requires 2 security personnel to be provided by the applicant.
Right on.
And
I thought,
so
I think, to understand your question, because I thought yours, when do they use the police and when do they?
I misread. I misread. The recommendation is the same for both.
Okay.
And so I was thinking, I wasn't sure if it was like a,
the police reserve the right to interject themselves if needed.
Correct. If they review the nature of the event, how many people they expect to be in attendance, whether there's any potential risk of conflict, and making the assessment whether they think private security personnel would be adequate or whether they felt they need law enforcement presence there. Most of these typical ongoing events and the hours of operations are during the day. They didn't feel it was necessary for these.
love it. Okay.
With that, I have no further questions.
Awesome. All right. So
Consent.
consent again. David, thank you for
Being here all day.
your participation this
Thank you, and have a
afternoon.
wonderful
And
afternoon.
we were glad that you didn't have any more issues because it would have been a violation because we didn't have any more space for you on the agenda.
Okay. Our next item, thanks, David, is KN 13014, Mountain View Road, Professional Services Agreement for Construction, Engineering, and Inspection. Scott Bontrager, what's KN 13014?
Key number.
That is the key number given by ITD for the projects. That's essentially their project number.
Acronyms.
And that's everything you answer to them has to go through the key number.
Okay.
So a brief overview again of the project here. So this project is going from 6th and Mountain View. Let's see where the laser pointer is here. There we go. 6th and Mountain View, south down to Joseph and Mountain View. Up at 6th and Mountain View, we have a roundabout going in, single lane roundabout. At 7th and Mountain View, we will have an improved intersection with the rapid flashlights similar to what's at the middle school. And then down to Joseph Street is an improved intersection with turn lanes. And then the rest of the corridor is continuation of what the corridor looks like north of 6th Street with curb gutter sidewalk, bike lanes, just tying in more to that urban type interface with the cross section going through there. So this project's been going on since 2012. We're currently at the point where council had approved the state local agreement for construction back in December of 2020, which at the time the city had put their money into the pot for this, which was $240,000 at that time to pay for our 7.34% of the total cost, since the majority of it is federal money. These type of projects are done through ITD, and our local highway technical assistance council, LTAC, is who we work with directly for this type of work. So back in December, ITD had advertised the project. The low bid came from Western Construction at $2.188 million. That was accepted. And now we're to the point where we had to hire a construction engineering and inspection company to do the construction engineering inspection for the project.
Okay.
Back in December, RFP went out to request different firms to see who was qualified to do the work for this project. We had a 5-person panel look at this, 2 of LTAC's engineers, and then 3 from city staff looking at it. There was only one that had turned in an application for it, which was JUB Engineering, who actually designed the project. Everything looked on it. They did the negotiations on March 1st, and they came to an amount of $247,167,000, which equates to 11.3%. Typically for CE and I contracts like this, of this size project, you're looking at more like 15 to 20% of the total project cost. So this is actually lower than typical. And I think there's efficiencies built into this, knowing that they're also working on other ones of our projects as well. So the recommendation is the approval of the professional service agreement with JUB Engineers.
Questions?
And just to clarify, we have provided all our funding necessary toward the project. So while this appears to be a contract between the city and JUB, it's also with the state, the form of agreement. The state is going to be administering the project. We'll be paying all bills associated with this. So there's no financial obligation to the city underneath this agreement. We've already pre-funded that with the project.
Awesomely easy to understand.
Thank you.
The light that you were speaking of, that is one similar to by the junior high, is that one of those that you can activate?
Yeah, pedestrian. It's
Okay,
I love those.
different than the Hawk signal that you see at Third
Right.
and Mountain View.
But one that kind of makes that noise and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Middle school, yep, the
Yep.
rapid flash beacons.
Do you have any questions before we?
No, looks great.
Wow, you stunned us into silence. Okay, I say we put this one on consent too.
That'd be great.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank you.
I was going to ask,
okay.
do we know, because I saw that the hopeful timeline for, I'm still good with consent agenda. When do I get to tell my friends who live on that side of town that it'll be done?
It will be done. So it has a sliding scale of when the contractor can start. They can start anywhere from May 17th to July 7th. And then from there, they have 57 working days.
Okay.
So it'll finish up sometime between mid-August and late September, depending on when the contractor starts.
And my guess is everyone's motivated to try and get it done by the school year. So,
Yeah, and we're also coordinating this with other projects as well. So
okay. Thank you.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is the reaffirmation of the Fair Housing Resolution number 2021-06 and the Fair Housing Proclamation. Elisa Anderson, hi.
Good afternoon. Oh, that's my chair. This afternoon before you is a reaffirmation because we didn't have any changes this year to the Fair Housing Resolution. In the past years when we've had an active community development block grant, there has been updates, and Moscow's a little more progressive in their resolutions for fair housing. And so we had those updated those years. And with it, today, we also have the proclamation because the mayor will read that next week. So I'm not really
Awesome.
seeking approval of that, but some of the wording, we weren't quite sure how to put this all together because it was a little bit different than we had seen in the past. And I'm anticipating hearing about an award on this. We have a contingent award. We've submitted
excellent.
our addendum, and this is for the half of a fire engine. Let me step
Okay.
back a little. So this resolution is for that. Also, we have another block grant that's open for the 2 parks projects we have. So
Okay.
we have to continue to meet the requirements that the Department of Commerce has for us each year. So with the reaffirmation, then I will again also publish the notification so that the public will be reminded and see it again that this is the city's guidelines for that.
So I have no direct questions with respect to this, but how many grants do you put out a year? You are always here. Just out of curiosity, there's a
Side
lot of
topic.
work. It's just like you put out lots of them.
You know, it's a team of us. It's not just me, but I'll be honest, I lost track at about 2013. And I think
It's a blur.
now, yeah,
Yeah.
Jennifer's, I think we're going to try to do some recreation and go back and figure it out, but
No, it just,
I'm not sure.
it didn't surprise me that you didn't actually know by number, but there's a lot of work on these things. We hear from you all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aside from this being a grant requirement, I'm glad that we are keeping this kind of in the forefront
Mhm.
annually where we reaffirm our commitment to it. It's a good thing.
Yes.
Do you have anything you would like to? Okay. Do you want to wait till she gets up and then jump on a question?
I'm not getting up for a while, so.
And does this need to be on regular?
We'd like to have this on a regular agenda,
Okay,
just so we can have it
that's-
reflected in the minutes, have the resolution confirmed and the proclamation read.
All right, awesome. Lisa, thank you for that one. The next one is our Child Pedestrian Safety Grant Award. Woohoo!
And
This
my
is-
main player, my main partner Nate is joining me for this one.
I don't know if I'd say that
Hello.
on the record. This is Nate, sir, and Elisa will do it again for us.
So Nate's going to bring up just a short PowerPoint for us. This is some of that one-time funding from the state.
Great.
It's state funding, so that's why we don't have a resolution attached to this agreement. But it was a quick turnaround on this. They announced the money. This is from some of the state surplus that they recirculated. And I think we saw this one other time. Was it 18, 19?
17 or 18,
Yeah.
yeah.
We've been doing this for a while. And so it's a quick turnaround. We do our best. And Nate's most familiar with the design of the project, so I'll let him give you an update on that.
Awesome.
Well, everybody breezed through. I made it such a short presentation because not knowing we'd have so much time left over. So I might drag it on a little bit.
No,
That
no,
would
no,
be awesome
don't,
if you
no.
drag it out. That's good.
No, I'm really excited to be up here with the good news portion of what we do here. And like Elisa said, there is an amazing team. So a little bit of a background. The requirements of this, obviously they're focused on children pedestrians, and essentially they limited us to where we were considering largely a sidewalk or a pathway program. And it also has to be shovel ready to be built the same year it's awarded.
Oh.
So those are both requirements, but the maximum funding of $250,000 comes with very little additional requirements other than that. So we get
Sweet.
to use our local standards and things like that make it very easy. Submitted the application back in December. The city of Moscow was ranked 5th out of 50 statewide applications.
Nice job.
And they only funded
Yikes.
the top 8. So this was a very competitive grant.
Wow.
And our fearless leader, Elisa, took us through the process well.
Yeah, I think they had 10 million in requests for 2 million in available funding in the program.
Oh, wow.
I just want to share, it isn't that easy to pick what project to do this. I mean,
Yeah.
Nate keeps track of a lot of different statistics, and he knows in the back of his head what our next project needs to be. And so it's, we meet, but he's always really great at presenting to us. I think this is where we need the most help
That's good.
next time. So
Thank you, Lisa. So on the grant award, 2 of basically the only requirements that we have are that we submit a mid-project report by July 1st and that the project be completed and closed out with LTAC by December 9th. If this agreement is approved after execution, the city will be issued a check for $250,000, and then we're responsible for any additional project costs. Our current estimate for this grant was about $285,000, so we expect $35,000 or $40,000 to come from the sidewalk program. Just a very brief look. So you all have noticed at D and Mountain View, the tubular markers that are in the center of the road. This will allow us to make that more permanent, but instead of having those unwieldy islands in the center, we're going to be shrinking it from the outside, expanding the pedestrian pathways and making it just a much more navigable corridor while still reducing the number of conflicts that a crossing pedestrian will see. So, and then in order to facilitate additional drop-off locations, we'll be modifying the Cleveland and B Street. This is just the unused spur that dead ends at Euler Field. So we'll be modifying this for kind of a mixing drop-off area that will provide access to the pathway that will connect up to D Street and the other safe routes to school improvements that were done. So that's all I had on that one. Are there any questions on this project?
Go ahead.
I have some. So I am excited to see this project through. I will say there were some questions, granted, when I was knocking on doors with neighbors in that area on the campaign trail who weren't really excited with the change as is. And I'm thinking of a few intersections that I drive through in Pullman every day that have full four-way stops that I can't handle it super well. So I guess I'm thinking in terms of being a realist. What happens if, what would be our next step if this solution doesn't, I know the ultimate thing we're trying to solve here is pedestrian safety, but what do we do if traffic is such that it introduces other problems? Are there other things? Is this phase one? I guess I just get nervous because I have heard some negativity in the community about reducing the turn lanes.
I just want to kind of address that first because I happen to have had a meeting with Aaron Bacon, the Safe Routes to School
Oh, yeah.
coordinator this morning, who right now is the only crossing guard that the school can find for that intersection. And she's narrowly been missed by a vehicle several times.
Yeah.
And so for me, I know it's safety for the kids and for the crossing guards. And I think people just really need to focus on that.
And I also think back in my day when I was walking to the junior high from that neighborhood, it wasn't, I guess I don't know if it's just been a change in how many cars are there to pick kids up. And I also, maybe part of it is just messaging that we all need to accept that it's going to take maybe 10 minutes more to drop off or pick up your kid for the sake of safety. And I'm okay with that. And maybe that's an awareness thing. I don't know.
And the reality is turn lanes at a four-way stop controlled intersection don't give you much capacity throughput. Everybody has to rate for the right of way.
Yeah.
That really is striped and laid out when it was only a two-way stop controlled intersection before
Right.
2006. So when you have Mountain View uncontrolled north to south, having a left turn lane for somebody to get into to move out of the way of continuing traffic is important. When you get to a four-way stop controlled intersection and you have 8 people arriving at the intersection at different times and trying to decide
Yeah.
who has the right of way,
Right.
it really doesn't, unless you can get platooning of that through and left turn movement at the same time, you don't
You're not
really
doing
gain any real capacity.
Favors. Okay.
And the volumes at that intersection are nowhere near approaching anything that would be considered to be a substandard service level,
Okay.
except for a concentrated 10-minute period.
Right.
And really, we are trying to encourage, because it creates conflicts all over the place when we get children dropped off at the door of the school. We
Right.
really would like to find other safe drop-off
Right.
locations to
Okay, cool.
alleviate that congestion, which is why we have the B Street improvements tied into this. So we have both the pedestrian improvements, the shortened crossing. Now that we have the curb bulbs coming out, pedestrians should be able to get across more quickly, reducing the amount of delay we have at the intersection, and then we're improving an alternate drop-off location. So it's kind of trying to address both issues there and encourage other behaviors.
Cool.
And we have been doing some delay studies that's still in progress. It's not complete. What we've seen so far is a small increase in delay of about 8 to 10 seconds that's been decreasing with each
Yeah.
sampling. So it seems like as people are navigating the corridor more regularly and getting used to the new improvements, that we're actually starting to see numbers close to what we saw before the improvements were made or before the adjustment.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And
Yeah.
it just felt like I didn't have the information. I never doubt that the people who love traffic and love studying sidewalks and intersections don't come ready with the information. I just would love to be able to better communicate that to people who have a hard time with change. So
It
including
ties
myself.
really well into that whole project
It
that Scott
does.
just talked about with us. So and it is things are changing and we will adjust.
We continue to, work on this Mountain View corridor. We have, another grant out that we've proposed. 2 grants, yeah. We've been working on this for, I don't know, most of the time that I've been with the city and we're getting close to having all of it done, but it all ties together with safety and traffic flow.
Yeah, I'm just curious on making sure that enough people start using B in Cleveland. That's a big one for me. It's like you have it. It's a great way. You just take that little path right across there and it stops everybody from being right there in front of the school. I just hope parents start using it and that they are aware that that's a good thing to use.
We're teaming with the school district
Good.
Good.
and the Safe Routes to School, and they'll be doing releases and PR.
Thanks.
So people are aware of it.
Are the neighbors okay with that change?
So far, they seem to be. We've started, since hearing about the award, we've started to kind of do some more foot traffic and canvassing. I haven't spoken to them personally, but my tech has not been shot at yet. So he seems to be doing just fine.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that we are definitely in favor of it. And if
Yes.
we can put this on consent
We can-
too?
yep.
Okay. Wow, we're
Nice
feeling
work.
consent-ish today. Okay, Elisa, hey, guess what? Our next item is Transportation Alternatives Program, South Main Pedestrian Underpass State Local Agreement.
Yes.
Nate and Elisa show again.
So the Urban Renewal Agency and Bill actually started looking at this project back in 2018. And we did a feasibility study of taking that area between Highway 8 and Highway 95 closest to the U of I entrance on whether we could do an underpass similar to what we have on Steiner and Highway 8.
Yep.
And it has worked out as a great location. In February of 2020, we applied for an award and were notified, or for a grant, and we were notified in March of 2020. But we were placed on the STIP in a 2-year area behind. And so here we are in 2022. We've moved up the transportation plan to where we're ready to do design and construction. And they actually gave us one agreement on this one, I noticed, which is different because a lot of times they'll give us a design agreement and then a construction agreement.
I would expect construction would come after design.
Yeah,
a separate
yeah,
agreement. Yeah.
But we've seen coming from LTAC in the past sometimes that it's 2 agreements. So this one's one.
Streamlining is what
yeah.
we call that.
And I'll just kind of go over the project costs a little bit, and then Nate will go ahead and go through his presentation. Or did you include numbers in yours?
I didn't really
Okay.
include numbers.
Okay.
I just included
Okay, so
everything's preliminary.
total project costs at this point, we're looking at $1,692,000. No, $1,692. Excuse me. And then the state is going to put in $499,644, which is about 49.65%. And then the remaining balance of $506,688 will be split between the Urban Renewal Agency and the city at $253,344 each. And this agreement requires us to submit $50,699 with the down once we sign it and submit the resolution. So we will do that. And then there'll be a percentage of an amount that we'll pay on each payment as we go through the project. This does include a resolution with it. And staff is recommending approval, and I'll let Nate go through the project dynamics.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will skim through this history because Elisa touched on most of it.
Sorry.
No worries. We don't have much on this. This is, this would allow us to hire a design professional to start the design. So a lot of this, the numbers that you're hearing, this is very preliminary, but what we anticipate is that we're going to mimic what we saw on the White Steiner, the Paradise Path underpass that has been very well received. And this will largely, let's see here, continue a very long pathway that will allow connections to the east side of Moscow, to the university, from various multifamily housing developments. This is a great connection across a road that is not really easy to navigate as a pedestrian. So just wanted to provide this large scale map because we don't have a lot of specific details, but give everyone an idea of where, what this connection would provide here and how it's kind of the centerpiece of a lot of this pathway system. And that's it for me on that.
We've had a lot of people ask whether or not the bridge was deemed historic, and it was not. And so
Interesting.
the
Okay.
bridge
Right.
will be removed as part of the construction and the beginning demolition of the project. So
This to me is an example of excellent partnership And I think that those down in Boise should pay attention to how our URA works and be impressed and in awe. Any questions?
No, this is fun. I mean,
So we're
exciting.
hoping design the share and construction next year.
Really helps on safety issues.
Yeah, I was
It
gonna say,
does.
because we don't have control over that light, right? Like technically, even though it's South Main Street, it is a
ITE.
state.
Right.
State highway.
And so when those, I just am picturing the number of times that I'm there for the 20 much needed and appropriately timed 30-second crosswalk light. But yeah, this is super.
Hopefully we'll reduce the number of those crossings that are needed.
Love it.
Hopefully
run
people will use the
in the
underpass
west.
and it will be well lit too.
Yes,
So
similar to-
that's also been a question,
Mhm.
safety, and it will be well lit.
Okay, does this need to be on?
Consent's fine.
You know what? I'm
Well,
consenting.
And just so the council's aware, we'll also have the small business nonprofit grants applications on the consent agenda. So that I expect that discussion may take some time. So
Okay.
it's fine having all these items on consent. We'll
Okay.
have that as being the main item of business on Monday night.
Do you mean regular agenda? Bill?
Regular agenda.
Yeah, regular.
Yes.
So I meant it's fine having all these on consent because that'll be a regular agenda item.
Good.
Correct.
My only, oh, go ahead.
Have we had any problem at the White and Steiner?
Mhm.
I mean, I appreciated the sense that you put in that we're going to have lights down there and everything else, but we've not had any problems so far.
No, I mean, Nate, you're more familiar with, but we do have, it delays traffic when if you have a pedestrian crossing right by Pizza Hut and then down
Oh,
at the other two
totally. Yep.
intersections.
I totally get that.
And then
It's
you
just a
don't get the
safety
right
issue.
turn coming by the banks. And so it does back up, I think.
I hate that intersection, to tell you the truth. So I'm really glad that there's
We
a way
had some
people can walk under
flooding.
it.
Didn't we have flooding?
It's a hard one.
We might have 4 or 5 days a year from
Yeah,
the study
but
that
that's
that
the
could
only thing
possibly
I-
be underwater.
And that was always understood that certain flooding events, it was going to be underwater. We close it off and clean it up and then it's available for the majority of the year.
I know for me, walking that extra half a block to go through the underpass and going back
Worth
down
it.
is much safer.
Safety,
agreed.
safety.
You had a
And you
question.
don't have a
Haley.
logging truck coming at you with this Jake brake, wondering if it's going to stop or not.
Go ahead,
So
Haley.
I just wanted to triple check my remaining questions. So especially since this has been around on our radar since 2018, my guess is that the Urban Renewal Agency and the city have both been, I don't have concerns about us having the funding to do it, but I'm guessing it's been appropriately planned for
yes,
since it's been on the
yes.
radar,
It's
right?
programmed on both the city's capital improvement plan as well as the agency's plan.
Love that.
Right.
Let's hope numbers come in
Yeah.
at the estimate.
Excellent. Good stuff. Consent sounds good for me.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
It's the end of our regular agenda. There are reports, however. Downtown short-term parking update. Oh, boy, there's a whole string of words I like in a row. Steve Schulte and Tyler Palmer. Tell me something good.
Good afternoon. How's it going?
Excellent.
Good.
All right. We are going to make this one short, sweet, simple, and easy. Just for a little background for this, as you guys are well aware, parking is a big component of our downtown. And having a healthy parking strategy is really important for a downtown. Vibrancy is what we want. We need to have, and there are a lot of different needs and competing needs downtown that compete for parking. And so as we work through that, we've always tried to balance out those parking needs so that we can best accommodate the people that want to use our downtown. And we're lucky to have a downtown that people want to use. So before the parking program that we implemented in response to COVID-19, there were 11 short-term parking stalls that are shown on the map here. These 11 stalls served all of downtown. They were almost all of them were labeled as loading zones. And so there was always a little bit of friction as far as that went. Some people didn't understand that a loading zone didn't mean that it's just for deliveries of like delivery trucks type of a thing, that it was something that the general public could park in. And so we'd have requests come in randomly for additional stalls in additional places. And it was just kind of ad hoc. It was like a new business would go into this place and they'd say, oh, we have a need for a loading zone in this location. So along came COVID, and with COVID, there was a need to prop up some additional programs. Now, the council has delegated to staff the authority to control parking in the downtown and the designation of certain stalls downtown. And so as part of that program, in a rapid response program, we propped up a temporary to-go parking program where we allowed businesses to apply for parking permit, or excuse me, for additional parking stalls within the downtown. And Steve's just going to talk a little bit about that program and some of the lessons that we learned and the numbers that we saw through that.
So as you recall, early on COVID, downtown was a ghost town. There was there's a lot of open parking stalls. We tried to find better uses for them. One of those ways was to make the takeout stalls. So there was a couple dozen businesses, I think, that took part, that applied for those parking stalls. At the peak of the program, we had 39 downtown takeout parking stalls. This map kind of shows the numbers that we were looking at closer to the beginning of the year, I think, is when we made this map originally. But yeah, so the total downtown loading zones at the peak of the program was right at 50 stalls. So with this, now we're looking at around 24 right now. I think there's around like 17 of the
Like
takeout
today,
stalls existing right now
17
as of
left.
today.
17 and then the 11 in addition to that. So the 11 original, 17
Okay.
additional to the 11 original.
So yeah, our plan is to look at better uses of these areas as we get back to normal.
So as we've seen a ramp up, obviously in activity downtown, that competition, we didn't have much of a friction point at the height of the program when we had 50 stalls up there, just because there weren't as many people accessing the downtown in person. And if they were, it was to come down, pick something up, and then largely go back to their homes. And so Steve and I have attended multiple Downtown Business Association meetings over the course, or excuse me, these Downtown Business Alliance meetings over the course of the last 6 months, and tried to be in communication and make sure that our programs are responsive to the needs that we're seeing within the business community in our downtown. And so we did start to, initially there was a big desire to keep as many of these stalls as possible. And so we started to wean those back because we'd hear from the community, oh, I don't like this. And we made some updates to the program. We marked the 10-minute at the head of the stall because you'd have people doing the nose in, nose out the whole way down the street kind of a thing. And so we really tried to balance those things out. And we've pared that program back as we've seen an increase for demand downtown. So most recently, anybody who had 2 stalls, we winnowed that down to 1 stall per applicant. And as Steve mentioned, we're down to about 17 now, plus the 11 existing. And so as we go through that process, we are starting the process of a downtown revitalization study, as the council is aware. And so what we wanted to do was twilight this temporary COVID program, it was always intended to be a temporary COVID program, but take the lessons learned from that program in coordination with our business community and come up with a scheme that will allow us to take a look at some strategies that we might want to employ in the downtown revitalization. And so what we're going to implement is what you see on the screen here. It ends up being 21 total. So it would be 10 additional stalls to the 11 stalls. Now, those aren't all in the same location, obviously, but as far as the numbers go, it would be 10 more stalls than we had pre-COVID. In part, that's in response to feedback that we're getting from the business community that they do believe that the dynamic has shifted in a way that may be more permanent. They're still seeing a higher percentage of people who are doing takeout. And then a lot of people have learned that they can use these stalls for those things. So it's not just our restaurants. You have people that are popping into book people to pick up a book, or the bike shop to grab a part, going in to sign some papers real quickly at the title company. They can pop in, come out. And so that utilization has been good. And that's actually a very healthy thing for us to have in downtown, is some of those higher turnover stalls. And so the strategy that we have here is that the general rules for the program is that it would be the first stall in the direction of travel on each block face. And so what that does is it makes visibility really good and predictability really good. So you don't have the nosing in. Is this the short term? Is it not the short term? It's a very visible stall. It's an easy to get in and out of stall, and it's predictable on each block face. And so what we'll do is we'll implement this program. Our implementation date for this changeover for the twilight of the COVID program and the implementation of this strategy is April 18th. So April 18th, we'll be communicating through the Downtown Business Alliance and also directly to all of the business participants who had a short-term stall. We'll communicate directly with them, send them out the map and explain the new strategy to them, and have that communication that goes out. Implement this and then monitor that over the course of the next year as we go through the design process on the downtown revitalization and use lessons learned to inform the downtown revitalization.
And just to clarify, Tyler, even though this says takeout parking on the slide, this really is intended to be short-term
Like 30
parking.
minutes.
And the label on the sign will stay short term. It will not say takeout. It will be short term parking so that we can get away from the concept of either it only being for delivery truck drivers or just for restaurants. It's no, this is just for anyone who needs a short-term parking
Yep.
stall.
So how do you define short term? I mean, I guess my concern is that
10 minutes. They will be signed for
it
10
was,
minutes.
oh,
Okay,
great.
signed
I
for-
just, I
okay.
mean, it's much easier. And I think, well, I'm only going to be in there for 25 minutes. Well, that's it. You know, it depends on that. So if you can still say 10 minutes, that makes it pretty
Yeah,
clear.
the signs will read that. There's actually a regulatory sign under the manual that we have to use for regulatory signs that, so it's an enforceable sign that will say 10 minutes short-term parking.
Perfect. That's great.
And then we can adjust as we go through the next
That's right.
Nice.
X amount of time. We can say, all right, we need 2 times that or half.
Yeah, this
At
is
the
what's
end of the-
working. This
okay.
is what's not. Yep.
Do you have concerns about enforceability?
Well, so enforcement has always been by complaint on these. You know, you rely on people. Generally, most people are really good about
Yeah.
following traffic signs in these situations. And so if we do have somebody who's abusing it and someone notices somebody camped out, the business can contact parking enforcement and parking will go out and perform enforcement. We don't have a mechanism to patrol
Yeah.
every one of these once every 10 minutes.
No, and
So-
I couldn't remember if COVID had changed our parking enforcement bandwidth and ability. And so it's been a while since I've been down and
since
had my
these have been
tires
on a
chopped, but-
complaint basis, and really we have amazingly few complaints. And, you know, every once in a while, anybody who's been down there will see somebody who has abused it once in a while, but it's certainly the exception, not the
Yeah.
rule.
Beautiful.
And you may recall, COVID hasn't necessarily impacted our enforcement
But we
authority,
can't chalk
but,
tires anymore,
but
right?
some court cases have,
Right.
yes. So that's still a project ongoing
Fascinating.
to develop a new system to administer that program more efficiently and effectively.
Rubber duckies. A rubber
Yeah.
ducky on a, or like creative solutions, creative punishment.
Random. Okay. So, all right. And then you'll just come back periodically and let us know how it's going.
Yeah, and
Because
as
parking
as
is
we
such
go
a
through the
riveting-
downtown revitalization, that'll be a lot of the information
Right.
that we'll pass back to you all through that process.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right.
I appreciate the fact that you guys spent so much time working on this because it really made sense to me now to actually reduce the number of stalls that we had. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job, guys. Thank you. Mr. Belknap, do we have any staff reports?
Nothing today.
Okay. Well, that's the end of our meeting. Would we like to adjourn?
I would be in
You sure
favor
do.
of it.
Okay. So I think we'll go ahead and adjourn.